Okay, so hello and welcome back to another Disco bot tutorial. In this video we're going to be setting up the database so that we can actually make an RPG bot. We're going to have items, inventories, each player is going to have the items they own, their gold, and other such things like that. So we need to set up a database and connect it to our bot. Just like I did in my previous video with Blazor, we were setting up a website and a database for that. We're going to set up a database for the bot now in a similar way. So if you've already done it there, you might recognize some things from this video, but I'm going to go over it again and set it up specifically for what we're doing. Hope you guys enjoy the video. Let's get into it. But of course, first I've got to thank my patrons. A special thanks to Beard or Die, Francisco Diaz, Rack, Yoris Letta, Hades Orko, Art Farrell, and Marie Baldwin. If anyone else is able to help support the channel monetarily, link to my Patreon is down below. If not, there are also links down below to other social media such as Twitch, Twitter, and Discord, as well as our website. If you could help us out by following on any of those or creating a free account on our website, it would be greatly appreciated. Now let's get to the video. So as always, the code for these videos are going to be down below. If you go down below into the description, you'll find the GitHub link. You can go get access to this. The only thing I've done since last video is I've kind of shuffled the folder structure around just to get it set up for doing this video. If you follow along and have some problems, it'll be because your folder structure is different. So a quick overview of what I've done, even though you can see this on GitHub, is I've moved the project solution to the root. So this is the root folder. I've got the README and the license and the git ignore stuff. So this is the project solution for everything. And then we've got a folder for Discord bot tutorials.bots. And then inside here is just all the code we've already previously had. And you'll notice in here, if I go to, for example, bot, it's discord tutorial.bots, because the Discord bot tutorial is going to be the root namespace. Okay, so we're going to go ahead and make a folder in here for the actual project for the database. Now I'm just going to call it something like A, because if I do this, if you actually call it the same name as your project you're trying to make, it gives you some problems. I had some problems getting this to work. It was quite annoying. So what we have to do now is we just have to make the project in here. So if we add a new project, and we'll make a class library for .NET Standard, Discord bot tutorial.dal. Okay, and make sure you place it in the right place. So here, create. So now I've got the project, as you see, and now we can rename this to be Discord bot tutorial.dal. Okay, so now it's here. We've got a project inside, and then we can get rid of this default class it gives us. So we've now got a project to do our database access layer in. So for example, in here, we're going to need to make a folder to put our models. So we'll make a folder models. Okay. And we're going to want a base model that all the different database models are going to use. So we're going to make a class, and we're going to call this when it loads. This is an entity. So a thing in the database is an entity. Okay. So this is going to be a public abstract class because we're not going to be using it. It's just going to be inherited. And then this will not inherit anything itself. And it's simply going to have one property. It's going to be the key of the database table. So if you do key and install system component model annotations, find and install, give it a second. Failed because details for this could not be loaded. Okay, so guys, I just reopened Visual Studio and it starts working fine. That's just a problem you have to deal with sometimes. So just give it a restart and it'll work. Okay, so in a public int ID get set. So it's a get set property and it's the key of anything we use in our database. Okay, now inside models, we can make a model. So for this video, we're going to make one thing and it's just going to be a complete test, right? We're going to have a class and this is going to be, well, let's make a class for item related models. So we'll go items. And inside here, we'll make an item class. Okay, so this is an item that you can get in this RPG, right? So we're going to make this a public class. It's going to inherit entity. So it already has the ID in it from its child. And then inside here, all we want to do, oh sorry, it's parent. All we want is we want anything else to do with an item. So for the sake of what we're doing, I'm going to just say an item has to have a name and a description for now. We'll add plenty more stuff later, like price and whatever else. But for now, it's just going to be a name and a description. So we're going to say public string name get set. Okay, that's a property name. It's public string description get set. Okay, and by doing this, we now actually can save this to the database. Okay, we can use this in our database. We're going to have a table when the database is made of this. But before we actually do that, we need to, we don't have any actual database code here. We've just made some models, which means in the DAL, we need to add a new class again. And this is going to be called our, it's going to be an RPG, I guess. So we'll go with RPG context. Okay. It's a public class that inherits the built-in, well, not built-in, it's from a package, but yeah, we're going to be using the DB context. So DB context. Now, if we type this out properly, it says we should install Microsoft Entity Framework Core. Let's do that. Hopefully we get no problems this time. We don't get any problems. Okay, that's cool. I don't know what's going on here with these temp files showing up in here. Maybe... There we go. They're gone now. Okay. All we want in here is we want a DB set, so a public DB set of our type, which is item. Okay? Items get set. So we're saying when we use this context to set up our database, all we want in it really is we want a table of items. Okay, that's what we're saying. Now we also need to set up the constructor for this. So we're going to say public RPG context takes in DB context options of type and our type, which is RPG context options. And this overrides the base constructor that takes in options, and we do nothing. If you don't do this step, it'll tell you later that you need to come back and do it. I don't know exactly why we have to do this, but it's just something you have to do. And then now, whenever we add new tables to our database, we just add more DB sets. Now, there is other stuff you can do in here, but for the sake of what we're doing, we don't need to do anything else. So let's... Okay, so the next thing we're going to do is we're going to make it so that we can actually access the database from our commands, because otherwise we won't be able to use it or test it or anything like that. So currently we have a very simple startup here. We have the class program, which is essentially where your program starts. This function is where it starts. And currently we just turn on the bot and keep it going. But what we actually want to do is we want to have a proper file for handling dependency injection so we can access the database from our commands. Now, the standard way Microsoft does this is by using Web Host Builder. So I'm going to actually copy and paste a tiny bit of code here, just 2 functions. So instead of starting the bot here, we're going to start it elsewhere. And for this, we're going to need Microsoft Extensions Hosting. If you don't have this, add it through the Nugget thing. So go to your Manage Nugget Packages and add it. You see here we have ASP.NET Core Hosting and Extensions Hosting. Okay, so you need these 2 things. And once you're done with that, it should look like this and it will work. Though you might have a problem, which I had, so I need to show you how to fix that in a second. We don't have a startup file, as it says here, right? We need a startup. So what we're going to do is, first of all, yeah, add that using. So we've got the 2 usings I mentioned. You need to go over to the CS proj, so the actual thing here, and change this from SDK to SDK web. You have to add .web on the end. And once you've done that, it will probably recompile, it might reopen, and then we get to here. Now, this startup is going to be the class we use to do dependency injection. So what we need is we need the startup class. We're going to add a new class, startup. Okay, here we go. When you make a web project normally, this will be done for you by default. And I know we're not making a website, we're making a bot, but it's still going to work the same way. Okay, now once we've done this, we actually want to do the dependency injection. So we're going to have a function in here that essentially will be able to pass dependencies through. So a dependency is like, let's say the command needs, you know, access to the table for items. We want to pass in the context for those items so that it can, you know, we're going to make a service where we can access the database, so we can make functions like get item by ID, get item by name, create item, all these different item related functions. We don't want to put them in our commands because, you know, let's say we end up making a website and we want to also be able to do it through the website. We don't want to copy paste all the code. We want it to be in one place that we can use in our bot and in the website, and in any other application you make, you want to be able to reuse that code. Okay, so what we want is we want a function public void configure services, like this, right? Configure services, and it takes in an iService collection, which will be passed in by the thing we just set up in the program class. Okay, and then we also want another function configure, so public void configure, like so. And this is going to take in an iApplication builder. Now, as I said, this is all done automatically for you if you make a website project, but because of the way we did it, we have to do it ourselves. So an iWebHost environment env. Now, we don't really want to do anything. We don't want to. Well, we do want to do something. We don't want to do much in here right now. Okay. We simply want to pass in a service to the bot. We also want to start up the bot. Okay. So over here, we're just going to say var bot equals a new bot. Okay. Do bot, and our bot is going to take in the service provider. So we have to do this. We say var service provider equals services dot build service provider, and we pass that in. Okay, ignore the green, it's fine. And essentially this is where we're going to make a bot constructor now. Now we have this run async here, but we're going to change how that works, so we'll do that now. So we're going to make a constructor public bot that takes in an iService provider, or just services, it's fine. Okay, like so. And then what we want to do is we want to take all the like run async code, and we just want to put it, let's just take off this away and this delay. We're just going to end with client.connect async, and we're going to move all this code out of this function, goodbye run async, and put it in the constructor. So when we create the bot, we'll actually start all this stuff going. Now this is just going to have to say read to end. Get rid of the configure await, because you can't do asynchronous logic inside inside the constructor. And we want to actually pass the services into the bot to allow it to essentially use our service provider to inject into commands. So if we go over to the use commands next, where am I looking? Here, use commands next, okay? So we pass in the config, and the config is where we want to set the services. So we say services, it wants an iService provider equals services, okay? So we're going to set the configuration services to be our service provider. This is what allows us now to actually pass in references to our database so we can use it, okay? Now we want this bot to stay active all the time. So the way we can do that is by making it a singleton. So we're going to say services.add singleton bot. Okay, you pass in the bot, got a singleton bot. And that's actually going to keep it running now, because we're never going to dispose of this object. It's going to be alive as long as this actual application is alive, and the application is the bot, so that's all good. So if we run this now, it will actually run the bot and be the same as it was, but we don't care about that. We want to actually start connecting to the database we've just set up, so let's go ahead and do that. So up here, we're going to say we want to add to our services. We're going to add db context, okay, which I don't think is going to be very helpful. No, it's not. Okay, so we have to add this ourselves. If we go to bots, go to Nugget packages, we're going to want to add reference to the entity framework core. So we're going to say browse entity framework core. Microsoft.entity framework core is what we want. We're going to install this. Okay, I accept. Go back here. Just make sure, if you ever get any problems, just make sure to save your CS proj files, because they like to unsave, or like by unsave I mean they don't save when you save everything else. It's a bit annoying. But now we've got add db context. It recognizes this function, so we can start using it. We want to say it's of type. Okay, what type is this? Well, it's the type of our context, which is RPG context. So we'll say RPG context. Add reference to DAL. There we go. Okay, and then we want to say for this to open it up, and we want to have some options. Close the options. Okay, now in here is where we want to say to use an SQL server, which is our database. So options.use SQL server. So use SQL server. Now, yet again, this probably isn't going to be very helpful, so we have to actually add it ourselves. Okay, let's go back over to the Nugget, and we're going to want to add another package. We're going to search SQL Server, and then we can actually get access to, where is it? Yeah, here you go. Microsoft Entity Framework Core SQL Server, this second one. Install this. Okay, I accept. Close this, make sure this is saved. Okay, and then now we can actually use SQL Server. We have to say using Entity Framework Core. There you go. And now we want to pass in the connection string, which is how it's going to connect to our database. Now, if you were using an external database that's like hosted somewhere, you would put in the connection string and set up the, how to log into it and set that all up. But we're just running a local one, which is, a lot easier to set up. We just need to put in this particular string. So I'm going to put this in the comments down below, or at least actually you guys can get it off GitHub, obviously. So let's do that now. Okay, so this is the same way I've done it for the web project when I did the Blazor video the other day. So we've got server equals, as I said, you can get this off GitHub. It's local DB using Microsoft SQL local DB. The database, you set the context, which is RPG context. trusted connection true, multiple active results true. And then over here, we set the migrations assembly, which we haven't made yet, to be discord.bot.tutorial.dal.migrations. Okay, so now it's time to actually set up the migrations assembly, which is the code you run on the database to make it work. And when you release updates to your database, so when you change models and tables and all the different stuff, you want to actually run migrations, which we'll get to in a minute. So let's create a new project in DAL. We're going to add a new project. It's going to be a class library. Class library. Okay, we're going to go for a .NET Core class library called Discord Bot Tutorial .dal.migrations. Give it a second. I'm just going to make sure if I go to the thing here, yep, they've all been added to the same thing. It's all good. We'll get rid of this class. Goodbye. Okay, and that's that for the migrations folder. So now what we want to do is we actually want to start running some commands to create the database from what we've got here in DAL and then using DAL migrations. So these commands I'm going to talk you through when we do them, but you know, it'll be dependent on what you've called your project. You won't be able to run the exact same thing as me. You'll have to change certain parameters. But yeah, let's open the folder. Okay, and we're going to go into the bots and we're going to open up a git bash and then be ready to do the commands here. So the first thing is you're going to want to make sure you've got .NET tool install global.NET EF, which is the entity framework tools. If you've already done this before, you should have it. So if we run this, it's already installed. That's step one. You also want to make sure you've got this entity framework core design package installed. So if we run this, make sure you've also got your, bots tutorial thing set. That's the one we're doing this in. So you've got to make sure that's your startup project. That's the one it uses when you do these commands. Actually, no, sorry. I don't know if that's actually true. I think it just does it where you've got your directory. So that's actually okay. If you've got the directory in the right place, you should be good to go. Okay, so the final command, or not the final command technically, but we've got .NET EF, so .NET dash space EF, sorry, I'm saying this wrong. .NET dash EF space migrations space add, so adding a new migration. The initial create, could call it whatever you want, okay? If the name of your migration is one word, you just put it like this, but if it needs to be, multiple words, you can use strings. So if you put whoops. Oh, I've started building. Okay, well, there we go. So it's initial create dash P, and then obviously we've got a problem here, but the command's correct. I just need to do one more thing in Visual Studio. You'll notice it's then the path to your migrations. So .. goes up, and then into discord.bot.tutorial.dal.migrations / and then the CS proj, which is discord.bot.tutorial.dal.migrations.csproj, and then you have to set the -- context to be discord.bot.tutorial.dal.rpg context. Okay. Now it said the problem was we couldn't load migrations and show it's referenced, so you simply need to go to here, add reference to DAL migrations. Okay, and then once this is done, make sure you go to your CS proj and save, because I've had this problem so many times where it doesn't save, and it's just because, I don't know, it doesn't save when you add it. You have to do it yourself. Now if I run this command again, it's going to get build started. Build should succeed. The build failed. Okay, let's go back over to the bots. We're going to build, see what the problem is. Okay, it's not compatible because apparently this is 3.0. Well, it should be 3.1. Okay, let's try building this again. Ready, build succeeded. Okay, let's try again. Run the command. Build started. Build should succeed because it just did a second ago. Okay, and now it's done. Notice how when it was done, we've got a migration over here, and we've got this initial create. Okay, now we're going to have to, in here, install package, find install. Okay, all these are fixed. This is going to, when we run it on our database, it's going to create us an items table, and items have an ID, which is an integer, a name string, and all this other stuff, right? And then if we wanted to downgrade and go back from this migration, all we do is we drop the items table, okay? So this is code that's automatically generated for us in the migrations folder. And then we have this model snapshot. Now last time I had some problem with this, getting this working, just because I had to import certain packages. So we're going to want to get the SQL Server package, use the local version, get that set up. Okay. Oh, and I think it's going to work actually. Use system. Oh wait, no, don't use system. That was just, yeah. We need to actually get reference to this. So we need to add, if we go to migrations, we want to add a reference to DAL. Okay, once we add reference, this works. So you see here, RPG context. And because I pressed undo, I need to actually say use local version again. And this works now. So if we remove the unnecessary usings, it doesn't really matter. That code gets auto-generated whenever. But if we go to our console again, so now you need to run the same command, but I've changed from migrations add to be database update, and then I've removed the name of the actual migration because it doesn't matter, it just uses whichever ones you've got here, so we've already made it. If we run now, fingers crossed, it should build, which it is, and the build failed. Okay, so migrations, build. Okay, let's see what the problem is. Maybe it's because I didn't save this or didn't save this. Let's just see again. Build. Build succeeded. Okay. I guess I can try again. Database update. Build start. Build succeeded. Okay. Now it's running the code on our database. Just keep going. And when it's done, we'll actually have our database created. Now you won't be able to see it. I mean, maybe there's a way to see it, but you don't need to anyway, because now we know it's created, and the way we can tell if it's working is by trying to use it. So let's make a quick command to try using it. So we will want to make proper services, as I said, but this video is going to go on too long if I do that. So instead, we're going to make a constructor in team command. So team command, and it's going to take in an application, sorry, not an application DB context, an RPG context. Okay, and we'll just call this context. And we want to cache it here so we can use it in our commands. So we'll say private read-only RPG context underscore context. Now the reason we can actually get access to this is because we added services to our bot. So whenever it registers commands, it can actually pass in the RPG context, which we register in startup RPG context. We've added it to services, okay? So that's how it gets here. Then we just want to say underscore context equals context. So when we use a command, we can make a new command now. So instead of join, let's just copy this code. Okay. What we want to do is we want to write a function to, we'll just make one for now, just called add item. Okay. And it takes in a string name or something. And we'll call this add item. Now what we want to do is we want to simply just add a new item to the database. So we're just going to say underscore context dot items dot add. And we want to add, or at least we can say await add async. Now this code wouldn't normally be here, as I said, it'll be in the services, but we're going to add async. It wants a new item. So let's add that namespace. So if we do control dot, okay. Now an item has a name. You don't want to set the ID, that's done automatically. So the name can just be name, and then description can equal, I'm just going to go for now, test description. Okay, so I'm going to hard code that. Why not? Just as a test. So we're going to say add async, a new item with the name. So we're going to say question mark add item test, and it'll be called test. Okay, and then we want to make another command. We'll do it here. And this is going to be called like item name. Or so it's just like, if we just go for item and then we put in a name, what it should do is it should give us the description of the item that we try to get, right? It's just some simple test command. So we're going to say items dot, and then we want essentially the first, we're going to say first or default async. We're going to get the first item where x.name is equal to the name passed in, okay? But with, let me just get rid of all this other stuff afterwards. Okay, where the case doesn't matter. Okay, so this thing I've just added is essentially saying where the name is the same but the case doesn't matter. And then we're going to say var item equals. So we grab the item from the database. Now we've got this item, and all we're going to do with it is we're going to say, wait, what's the problem here? We've closed this item. So then we can say await context.send message async. Sorry, context.channel.send message async. And we're just going to say item.description. Okay. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to run the bot, add something to the database, stop the bot, run it again, and try and read its description. Now, obviously, the description currently is just test description, but that's just proof that it works, okay? Let's give it a go. One thing to note is after we've actually added to the database, we have to say, for this to work, we have to save it. So we can say await context.items.save, context.save changes async, okay? Await false, I guess. So after we've added, we have to say save, okay? Just got to remember to do that, otherwise it won't work. So now let's run it. Okay, so I just fiddled around with the command. I couldn't get it to work properly because we are currently just using the context directly, and there's some problems with like accessing it, because normally in a service you use it and then you dispose of it. The way we've got it, it doesn't work like that. So what I've done just to test it really simply is I've made a function here where you can essentially do it to list. So we're going to load all the items from the database as a list. Now, if you had thousands upon thousands, this wouldn't be a good idea, but because I know we only have like 1 or 2 because I've been testing it, it's fine. So you'll notice how if I look at Discord, I can add a new item, right? If we add item sword, okay, then we do question mark. Now I'm not logging anything right now, I'm just going to debug it. Question mark item, just whatever. Notice how here we can step over, and items loads 3 items. We've got the first one, Heya, which I tried. Then we've got high, and then we've got the one we just did, sword. So sword is now in the database, okay? So if I turn off the bot and restart it, which I've already actually done, I've just shown you that, the ones I already had in there are working still. We are now loading this from the database. So feel free to mess around with this now, but keep in mind when you're messing with database stuff, it's always good to, I guess, have a backup of the project or make a second database, I guess is best, so that if you mess stuff up, you can easily fix it. I'm not going to go into that now, the video's gone far too long, but in the next video we can start making more models, do more migrations, make services to actually interact with it, so our commands can just say, you know, items service.add item or something, and then it's all handled elsewhere where we can interact with the database, we can query it, we can get information about it. It's going to be really fun. I hope you guys are looking forward to it. I understand this was quite a complex tutorial. Feel free to ask below if you need any help, or just look at the GitHub to, you know, compare the code. But thanks for watching, guys. If you like the video, please leave a like and subscribe. I'll see you guys next time. Thanks for watching, and goodbye.